is up, and welcome back to 24 Minutes of A24, the podcast that takes a look at the A24 library 24 minutes at a time. I am Ethan Simi.
And I'm Ben Lawhorn. This week on the pod, we are sweating our balls off at the Nicaraguan heat as we talk about Claire Denis' newest film, Stars at Noon.
I'm sweating just thinking about this movie, bro.
It's so hot.
A young American journalist stranded in present-day Nicaragua falls for an enigmatic Englishman who seems like her best chance of escape. She soon realizes that he may be in even greater danger than she is. As is the case with all of our episodes of the podcast, spoilers are ahead for Claire Denis' newest movie, Stars at Noon. You can stream it right now in the U.S. on Hulu. That is how we watched it, which is... That sentence in and of itself is wild. Like, Claire Denis' newest movie in English is streaming on Hulu in your home. Like, that is kind of crazy as it is. Wonderful things. I can't wait to talk about this movie. I just finished it. You just finished it. I actually did a split night. So I watched half of it last night, half of it tonight, and I'm very excited to talk about my experience with that. But before we dive into this movie, I want to talk about upcoming November slate of the podcast, Ben. We have some really exciting stuff coming up.
A lot of good stuff. I'm super stoked.
Yeah, I'm really excited. So A24 is just dropping basically a new movie every single week in November. It's crazy. They were like, look, we didn't get enough of the spotlight for Everything Everywhere All at Once. We didn't get enough of the spotlight for Marcel, for Pearl, for any of these movies. We're just going to gung ho one a week in November, get it all under the wire here. And this is what our plan is. So we're covering Stars at Noon this week on the pod. Next week, we are talking about Causeway, the newest movie from Apple TV Plus, starring Jennifer Lawrence and Brian Tyree Henry. That is going to be available on the streaming platform as of today when this episode of the podcast drops, actually.
Yeah.
So you have a week to check it out before we talk about it here on the show. We're doing After Sun the week after that on Friday the 18th. I am exceptionally very excited for that because it's a father-daughter movie, and I am a girl dad. We're doing The Inspection the Friday after that. That's on the 25th of November. And then we have our first ever A24 draft. We're going to have two very special guests on the show. We're going to do a draft. Things are going to get crazy. It's definitely going to be way longer than 24 minutes.
Without a doubt.
And that's coming out on Friday, December 2nd. Do you have an episode, a project that you're most looking forward to out of the slate coming up?
I mean, I always love a draft, without a doubt. But I mean, honestly, just the fact that we're getting all these new movies, when this kind of started out with us, it was a lot of we have the whole library to choose from. What are we going to do? And then now we have a whole month of there's no point in watching an old movie because we have 4 new ones, in 1 month. And we're we still have The Whale coming out.
Oh my gosh.
We have so much stuff that we can still cover. So I'm very much looking forward to all of November.
Yeah, and we have God's Creatures coming out the end of this year as well, nationwide on streaming platforms. So we have a lot of stuff. A24 is just doing it. We'll have to make an episode about how A24 is just pumping out movies because this is kind of crazy. It really defeated the purpose of why we made this pod was to talk about older A24 movies. Okay, Stars at Noon. We've got a new quote unquote erotic thriller drama. Love story, something. I want to get your take on it. Clocks in at 2 hours and 17 minutes. So it's a hardy project here.
Yeah.
Ben, what are we thinking, dude? I can't, because based on the last couple of weeks, I can't spot you. I don't know which way you're going. I don't know where you're going to juke me. So I don't know what to expect right now.
And I guess if people listen to the last couple of weeks, you've come to understand my feelings on a certain movie. And I have to say that this felt like The Witch of erotic thrillers.
Oh my God.
I was just what is, and I guess it's a little different though. I didn't have any expectations going into this. I went into this completely blind. I did not watch a trailer. I did not know anything going into it other than Margaret Qualley. And I was like, okay, cool. That's all I need to know. So yeah, I don't know. The erotic part of it definitely kicks in right away.
Yeah.
I live in a condo complex with my partner, and we are right across from the entrance, across the little courtway.
Okay.
And so people can kind of look up into our living room, and it's 5 minutes into this, we're just fucking
banging. Yeah, we're banging, bro.
Okay, well, if we're kicking off with this, this is gonna probably keep coming around. So I kind of had to draw the curtains. I'm this looks creepy, but I don't really want people what is that guy watching up there? And I think it was a good call. There's plenty of nudity. There's plenty of sex in this movie. Unfortunately, there's no chemistry. I felt like for all the
Mm.
sex that happens, there is zero chemistry for anybody in here. I love Margaret Qualley. Like I think outside of Multiplicity, it's the best thing Andy McDowell's ever done. But this was just like she's doing great here. Actually, like I actually liked her performance. I feel like maybe she was doing a little bit too much, whatever. But overall, I really enjoyed her energy and what she was doing throughout the whole movie. Unfortunately, everyone that she shared the screen with just was like not it for me. Like it was. We talked earlier about the IMDb and some of the trivia here. Like Joe Alwyn, I'm sure he's a lovely person. Like I have nothing against him
Yep.
personally at all. But apparently, like this role was first supposed to go to Robert Pattinson, who couldn't do it because of the COVID restrictions and the reshoots for the Batman. So he left, and then Taron Egerton steps in, our
Right.
Kingsman. Love Taron Egerton; he's awesome. And then he left for creative reasons. I think that reason might have been he read the script. I don't know exactly what he left for, but then we're left with
That is
like
brutal. That is brutal.
I don't know, man. And then we get Joe, and again, like I'm sure he's like a lovely person, but I was watching some of the like kind of interviews and the promos for this, and he looks so much more handsome with shorter hair. Like I know he's doing his best out there to like rep for the guys with patchy beards, and he's really carrying that torch. Like he was getting his money's worth out of that beard. And great job. I think that was awesome. But unfortunately, I just didn't like really love anybody else in this. We get a little Benny Safdie at the end, which was like fine, like it was cool. But
Yep.
outside of
Benny.
Margaret Qualley, this thing just like fell really, really flat for me. Unfortunately, I was stoked to see it, and I was very much looking forward to whatever Claire Denis put out because great director, but this no high life,
Right.
I'll tell you that. So yeah, what were your thoughts? What was your first reaction?
Yeah, I think it's interesting that Robert Pattinson was the first choice because she did work with our Pats in High Life. So I think that it kind of speaks to him as an actor having that rapport with a great French director. I think is really exciting. I think I don't. So this was my experience. Can I just tell you like this is what happened with like when I
Please.
watched the movie? Because I feel like I got to talk about this. So I watched half of it last night and I watched half of it today. Now, normally I don't like to split movies. I'm kind of like against that. I feel like that's pretty sacrilegious for like movie watching. And I am one all for like the movie experience. You got to sit down, you got to immerse yourself, you got to turn the phone off, etc. So I broke my own cardinal rule, but it actually really worked. It actually really worked because last night when I watched the first hour of it, I was like, you know what? This probably isn't for me. It's really quite a slow burn, just about like these people, just about their life, like what is going on, and we're trying to discern like how their troubles essentially are intersecting with one another's lives. And then I turned on the second half tonight, and I was just like I was immersed. I was very, very much invested in what was going on. I would say the second half is far more engaging when it comes to like a plot or like a tension or something like that. So maybe that kind of gave me the benefit here, but I actually thought it was pretty solid. I was actually a fan of what it was, and I think there's a lot to chew on here. Obviously, we're going to get into it and talk about it.
Yeah.
You mentioned the IMDb review. Okay, I'm going to read this real quick. I'm going to read this whole because this is the first. So if you look up Stars at Noon on IMDb and you're like looking at it, you're like, oh, here's the cast, like here's the user review, like let me go down and check all this out. You go to the user review, and this is the featured review. And I don't know. Do you know how this is chosen? Do they just like pick a random review? I have no clue.
No idea. I have no clue.
So this is it right here. It's not that long. It's 2 stars. The title says boring, unlikable mess. Then this is the body of the paragraph here. Not only is the plot pretentious and feels pointless, the characters are just as bad. I can't seem to like the main character. She's a stranded journalist in Nicaragua? ? Couldn't care less about like. Let's stop right there for a second. She is a stranded journalist in Nicaragua. This is a fact of the film that I don't know is really tracking with this featured review here.
Yeah.
couldn't care less about what happens to her. The story is so boring, and yet it leaves you confused as to what it's even about. If you care to be entertained, literally watch anything else. Anything at all. I'm dying. Every scene and everything about this film is pointless, so don't waste your time. I feel like the critics are giving it good reviews on Rotten Tomatoes because of the actress, but she's not even good in this. She really made her character very annoying to watch.
Interesting.
That's a lot to take in. I feel like that is a different, approach than you take, Ben. I feel like you're very calm about these things. Can I ask you, this person gave it 2 stars. That seems like a pretty fucking brutal review.
For sure.
No one, what was the 1-star redeeming quality where they were like, you know what? This gets a bonus star? Was it? Was it because there was 10 sex scenes or what?
Maybe that's what they were going for. Maybe this is Tommy Wiseau. Where it's like, oh yeah, there's a lot of good sex scenes in this. So 2 stars for me. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The setting was great. As someone I lived in Brazil for a while, and having traveled to some of the Central American countries, it was really cool to see that. I definitely felt like I was there. They did a really nice job of that. But I agree with that review where it's just I kind of understood her predicament a little bit, even though we're not really explained why this person is taking her passport from her or whatever. It's okay, that's doesn't feel like it's really ever explained until maybe the very end. And then the dude, Joe, is just it's just it was too vague. It was too vague for its own good. It's they kept trying to be sly with us or whatever, but it just got to the point where it's annoying. It's I don't understand why these people are coming after them. That doesn't make any sense to me. Why does she know what the Costa Rican cops look like? Why did she have to use the Mercado before to evade people? That's what I want to know, but we're not really told any of that.
Yep.
And it's just okay, I guess you guys are on the run, I guess, whatever. But that review said, I just didn't necessarily care about anybody. I didn't know what the stakes were really at all.
Yeah, that was actually my very next question to you. I want to break down the ending of this movie. I want to know, what the fuck did these people do? So we know from Trish, the main character, we know that she was at one point an American journalist who was granted staying privileges by the Nicaraguan government, and she apparently wrote an article about the kidnappings and hangings that were taking place during this era of political unrest and an election coming up, and that obviously portrayed her in a pretty poor light to the Nicaraguan government, and they just kind of cuckolded her in the country, I think, and just said you're fucked, you're staying here forever. What was the deal with Daniel? So it's very, very vague, and I don't disagree with you on that fact at all. What did you did you just stop caring? Were you just it doesn't even matter?
Yeah, I think that's kind of how I ended up, it's just as again, these are all spoilers that we're talking about on here.
Oh yeah, I just ruined everything.
As he pulls up, and just kind of gets arrested, when they get surrounded, he gets arrested, and she's like, are you the civil or the rural police or whatever?
What does that mean?
And then no idea. Yeah, again, no clue what that means at all. Then suddenly Benny Safdie and the Costa Rican, quote unquote, Costa Rican cop show up, give her 20 grand in an envelope, have her sign a paper, and then she then gets to see him again afterwards as he's leaving. I don't know if he's entering back into Nicaragua or where he's going. And I even what she says, what were you supposed to do? And then he's just let us pass. And then just that's
stone cold.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It's no real resolution and stuff which is, it can work in a movie. It just didn't work for me in this one. I guess because it was so confusing the whole time. If you want to leave it up to the audience, we talked earlier, I just talked about another movie, The Color of Money, which the ending leaves it kind of open. It's we don't necessarily know. There's not a clear whatever, and so it can work for sure. But with this, it was just it just left me more confused. Okay, well now I'm just more annoyed by this movie. I can't believe I spent 2 hours and 17 minutes on this. This is, I don't know. This is whatever. So I have no clue.
It's a Steve runtime, bro. It's a Steve runtime.
It really is.
I don't really know either. My thought process here is that at some point she had to have turned him in. because Benny Safdie's character is like, listen, here's the deal. Like, I can give you 20 grand in cash. Like, the CIA can just make anything appear at any point in time. And your friend is of great interest to me. And all this talk of like, what if like oil reserves don't exist? And like, what if they don't come around? Like, that was far over my head. I don't know. Yep. I don't consider myself a specialist in Central American politics. So I'm not, you know.
Like the overall whatever I got out of it, which is probably wrong, is he does work for some sort of like oil something, you know, conglomerate, whatever. And he was going to give information to the people that the U.S. didn't want to have that information.
Okay.
And so they sent in the CIA to like stop him from passing along that info. Like that was it. But that's like really just kind of pieced together throughout the movie of trying to figure out what the context is, because he talks about like working for an oil company, but that kind of seems like, I don't know, does he not? Like Benny Safdie is listed in the IMDb as a CIA agent, which is accurate, but we don't know that until the very end. And so, you know, that's either a spoiler or it's just like really confusing. I don't know. It was so weird, man.
I think what did work for me, I really enjoyed the score for this movie. I thought it was quite good. Is very vibey. I think the whole movie is kind of a vibe. It's very much of like, this is their life. Like we are just watching them pass by. Like I read the Roger Ebert review on this one, and they make a good case of like, you know, Claire Denis' style is like just watching these stray cats kind of like live their lives in the streets, right? And like this is kind of what we see. Like Trish is essentially an alcoholic who is stuck in Nicaragua and can't find her way out. He's fleeing from the federal law, and they really just cross paths at the exact right or wrong time, and that's all they have. They just have each other, and they're just, I think, addicted to like that presence of comfortability with each other. So I think some of that story did work for me, but it is very much a simmer. It is very much a slow like engagement type of a movie.
Can I tell you the stupid joke I said in my head to myself as I was watching this, like when they kept going back to each other,
yes,
and like,
please.
You know, like kind of like taking money, whatever. And I was like, oh, they're like Bonnie and Clyde. Like, no, they're like Boring and Clyde. So that's how it's a super dumb joke. It's a horrible joke, but that's what I thought in my head. Like, no, this is Boring and Clyde. That's what this movie is. I'm so bored right now. But anyways, let's get on to the true cinema.
Let's do true cinema, because we're gonna talk about some of these scenes here.
Let's do it.
We got like a small handful, so I think we're gonna go here. Obviously, the first one on the list is meeting Daniel at the bar. This is when Trish and Daniel kind of meet at the bar. The bar is gonna close in like an hour, and she, you know, the lifestyle that she has established in Nicaragua is that she sells her body, and that is how she sustains living in this country and affording things that she does. They immediately go up to her room, like you said, like 5 minutes in, we are like a full on, basically a softcore porn situation here, where we're just like watching people very sensually get after each other. And this is, you know, Claire Denis, this is her mode of kind of filmmaking, this very sensual vibe, aesthetic type situation. What did you think of their meeting at first? I know it just felt very stiff, obviously, when they first meet. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, it was kind of weird. I was almost like taken back or offended when he's like, "Are you for sale?" or what? How does he word it when he's leaving? I think something along those lines. She's like, "No, I'm press." That little back and forth. Like, why would he ask her that? Then you find out, oh, she actually is. Like, he was able to read her. I did not understand that that's what was going on here. Yep. So it was fine, I guess. I don't know. Again, it led to this like sex scene, and then like kind of becoming what we felt was intimate or close. But then, you know, at the end, she still like wants the $50 US, which is like coveted in this country. You know, like they pay in their local currency and they get mad. It's just like, no, I want dollars. Like I want US dollars. So just shows how much that kind of stuff is worth, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I do think her character is quite complex in the fact that like she does have feelings on some level for Daniel. Like there are multiple points throughout the movie where she thinks he is gone, and then she finds him, and she's like bawling, and then she's like, "I thought you left me. I thought you abandoned me." And it's like, she's very kind of all over the board, and I understand she is of that kind of frantic mindset of like she has no security and no safety, but she also values money, like above anything else at all. She wants money. the internet call with John C. Reilly. This part caught me off guard. Didn't know he was in this movie. From what I heard and from what I've read, his part on his call, like on the computer, entirely ad-libbed. He just winged it. He just went for it. I thought he was great. I thought he was hilarious in this scene.
He's someone I'm always happy to see show up. Like, I don't care what the movie is, what his role is, anything like that. Like, if you have John C. Reilly, then like, yeah, that's great. And he proved it here as well. It really did feel like, I don't know who called him to call in this favor, but it was just like, hey, will you just do this role? Like, all you have to do basically is like pretend that you hired or like this person thinks they work for you, let them know that they don't, and that you're not going to like send them any more money. And he did it. And he did it with his like Dr. Steve Brule hair, which is always my favorite. So dude, it was great.
He showed up and I was like, because I sometimes with John C. Reilly, I have a hard time like remembering his name for some reason because I'm so attached to Steve Brule. And I was like, look, it's Steve Brule on the computer. And then I was like, wait, this is John C. Reilly. He's like, you have my number, right? Trisha's like, yeah. He's like, why don't you go ahead and lose it and never call me again? Damn.
So good.
Ice cold. Breakfast meeting where Daniel and Trish are kind of talking. This is kind of the first really insight and like view into how troubled their world might be. Is like we actually get she's talking about like the local law enforcement and why he is kind of wrapped up in it. She sees like a gun in his room. Lots of big question marks at this point. And I feel like if you're not entirely invested, I feel like this scene kind of sets you back and you're just like, well, I'm really confused because like I don't understand anything that they're like inferring off of one another.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. There's a lot of just like trying to infer things without like really explaining anything. So she talks about the cop or whatever, and we'll go lose him, but like I don't get, like she goes to the buffet and the guy working there is like, no, it's for guests only. And then I think she goes to the bathroom or something and comes back out and then just eats at the buffet. I was like, well, is that guy gone? Like, what? I don't understand. Like, she was just told she couldn't do this. Like, great on her for getting food. But I'm like, why did you show us that other scene then? I don't know. And if anyone's listening and understands that, like, please tell me. I was just genuinely confused. I'm like, why can she eat here now? I don't get it. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, dude, she hits that rum bottle pretty fucking hard in this movie. She is on it. Every time she goes out with somebody, rum. Every time she is by herself, rum. Like all the time.
I love a pina colada, but damn, dude, like she's just like I don't think we see her drink anything else. Like
no, she's
the only other drink she gets handed is a Sprite, and she dumps it down the drain. Yeah. Like we don't like she just has rum in her hand the whole movie, basically.
Yeah. Oh, tough scene. Meeting the prime minister, she can't buy a plane ticket. I wanted to put this one on the list because I do think it represents how important her like getting a plane ticket is and how impossible a feat like that is to achieve, even for the prime minister. He's like, nope, elections are coming up, you gotta stay in. And she's like, you always tell me this. And he's like, yeah, what are you gonna do? And it's like, oh my god, like this is an absolutely like no-win situation. She can't get enough US. You can only buy a plane ticket in US dollars, and in order to trade in her local money for US dollars, she needs to be verified with a passport, and she doesn't have it because the government has it. And like she's really found herself in quite a pickle here, and it is a little disturbing.
Yeah, it's a rough scene. It's interesting though, like you said, like even though he's like the vice minister or whatever he is, he still can't even pull all the strings that he needs to. He's like, I don't know, it's kind of out of my hands right now. So it's another good scene though that really, again, her storyline is the only one that kind of brings any sort of tension, so to speak. But even then it's still just like, okay, well, I guess what's next? I don't know. It's like you're bummed out for her, but I don't really understand like what's going on or what the worst case scenario, because it doesn't seem like her life is in danger. It just seems like she doesn't have her passport. Like that's kind of it. So it definitely doesn't seem like it's any emergency situation, because she's like, look, this is an emergency, like we have to get this figured out. And it's like, you've been here, it seems like you've been here a while. Like if you know these people, and if you are one of the called upon girls for like the militia and the government to like sleep with, then you're in their pockets. Like you've been here for a minute, and you're not like, oh my god, I can't do this anymore. So I do think that was interesting. Dancing in the club and dancing, quote unquote, I think they share a very intimate moment
in which they embrace each other and kind of, sway to this music. Very, Leo DiCaprio in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, point at the screen situation when the song came on.
Before we shared each other, so many dreams we shared, like the stars at noon.
It says so many dreams we shared like the stars at noon. And this is one of the instances, but there are several instances where Trish kind of like pokes Daniel and is like, do you dance with your wife like that? Do you have sex with your wife like that? Like, do you do this with your wife? And it's very much this like hardened souls that are trying to break into each other and they just can't do it. They just can't let go of their own hangups and habits and personalities. I found this scene very, very impressive, and I actually liked it quite a bit.
Yeah, no, I'm with you 100%. I think this was like a beautifully shot scene. I enjoyed it quite a bit, and I think it kind of helped us understand their dynamic a little bit more because he talks earlier about like, well, I've committed adultery so many times, but it's kind of done in a passing comment. But this, where it's like they're sharing an intimate moment, then that's like kind of what brings up like some uncomfortable whatever for him, and intimate. I mean, he's having sex with people, but this felt like a true like, connecting with each other, and that is what made him uncomfortable. It was really kind of interesting and very telling scene.
Yeah, and I think the song is very important here. Of like their paths are crossing, and maybe in another life we have like this is very stretched, like a reaching comparison, but in another life they have an everything everywhere all at once situation, right? Where it's like, if we met under different circumstances, we would have been right for each other. We would have been perfect, but we have found ourselves both on the wrong side of life and on the wrong side of the law, and like in a very, very depressed, destitute sense of humanity, and like where they're hopeless and nothing is going to work. So they just fuck all the time. Like, it's like, all right, I guess that's what we do here. Couple more. Confrontation with the Costa Rican cop. She tries to spit in his face. He wipes it back on her. This is a one-on-one with Danny Ramirez, which I thought was pretty good as the cop. But it is a weird scene in the fact of like, what is their relationship? What does he want from her? I know that he wants to get to Daniel, but is that all it is? It's just like one big intimidation tactic in this scene?
That's what it feels like. I mean, same with the Benny Safdie stuff. It's like, what is it you want her to sign off on? Like, again, like that doesn't ever seem clear. It's like, well, what is she signing out, like that it is the person that they think it is? Or I don't understand. I don't know what his beef was with her at all. And he's like insanely aggressive. But I will say that spitting scene was interesting because that did feel like a little improv where the spit didn't go as she intended. Yeah. And he just like picks it up off her lip and just like smacks it on her face. Like, you left some. Like, oh, that was really good, man. Like, you guys are in the moment. I loved it. Yeah,
that was some good improv. I could definitely tell. It's like, you cannot spit like that if you try. So that was tough. I put the Benny Safdie meetup on here. We meet up at this restaurant, and then again, kind of in the next scene at the border to Costa Rica, he shows up, and then again he shows up in the very end. It was just a delight seeing my boy Benny Safdie on the screen. I thought he was quite good, and I love that he's getting in more movies. I just love that he's kind of getting in front of the camera, and I thought he was kind of funny. Like, I thought like a lot of the things he said were just so like out of touch with our circumstances, where it was like, that's pretty funny. I liked him.
I think you did pretty good. I think, like the Safdies, like a lot of people, when you start out making your own movies, like you have to be your own actors. And you kind of like learn how to do that stuff. So I think he does a pretty good job. I've talked about on here before. I went to school for film, and I had to take like a couple acting classes because they kind of said like you should understand the skill it takes for the people that you're directing. Like, if you've never done it, it's hard to like convey that, And it's like it was a super challenging class, and I felt that like while I was watching him, I was like, he knows what he wants. Like when he's directing, he can be like, hey, give me this. And I feel like he did a pretty good job being on camera this time. I think his timing was pretty good. Yeah.
In the final scene, we get that they are kind of caught in the church in Costa Rica. Trish meets up with the CIA, accepts $20,000. They pass each other one more time, and then she goes back to Nicaragua and sees like a kind of somebody from the government that we saw in the very beginning, them sleeping together. and says like, in a sense, you were good for me, and then it just ends. I'm gonna be honest with you, super duper honesty time. I don't fucking get it. I don't understand the very last scene. And again, like, this is a situation where like I kind of watch something and I'm like, I don't understand film. I don't get it. I'm not smart enough to get movies.
Yeah, it was a very interesting scene. Like we kind of saw them at the beginning of the film, and so we know that they had a dynamic of sorts. And her, like, in a way, you were good to me. It's like he was controlling to a point of being like protective or something like that. So maybe that's kind of what she was saying out of it, but I'm not sure exactly. Again, it was just like another movie where it cuts to black and the title card comes up like, oh, okay, we're done.
Like,
Got it.
We're done.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I'm picking the dancing in the club with the song.
Ooh.
I thought that was definitely my favorite scene. And if I had to go back in this movie and be like, hey, this is like, my elevator pitch, or like I'm going to watch this scene again, I think that's the scene for me. We get some, probably some of the most intent kind of tension between their characters and them really trying to break into each other, and a very intimate moment with a good song. And that was the scene for me. That was it.
Not what I thought. I thought you were going to go with the scene where, she said that she's on her period, and the next scene is him with blood all over his hands and chest. And I was like, what the fuck is going on right now? Like, why? Like, it was so intense.
Dude,
like,
that was
great on them. You know what I mean? Like, that's fine. That's fantastic.
That was wild. That was wild.
Like, just like the places that he had blood. It's like, what were you guys even doing, man? Like, how did that get up there? This is insane to me. But, I see. I mean, I think the club probably is like the scene, but the one that it sparked my interest a lot at the beginning. It's the one that we were kind of just talking about in a sense, but it's that the local Nicaraguan police officer or whatever that she's hooking up with at the beginning, who she's like running from at the beginning. She's trying to hide from him, and then she's like almost like negging him in some sense, where she like keeps calling him by the wrong title and the wrong name. He's like, stop calling me that. She's like, oh, okay, got it. But it's that scene where, I mean, they have sex. We're kind of understanding this is like a transactional thing for her. And then afterwards, he's like, oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you, I have to take your passport now. And it's just like, dude, that's so fucked that you did this. Like, you got one last one in, and then you're like, oh, sorry, our deal's up now. I felt horrible for her. Like, the way she freaks out is totally justifiable, and it's awful. And then for me, that was like, honestly, like one of the only real points of tension I felt in the film. It's like, oh shit, like she's in a foreign country without a passport now. Like, what is she going to do? Obviously, this is before she meets Daniel and all that kind of stuff. And we don't know the extent of everything that's going on, but she's like, oh, that's a real issue that someone has to resolve. So let's see what happens here. And then it kind of gets resolved at the end, but it's just a real kind of weird bookend. But I guess we're just left in the sense that like she now has 20 grand in cash and her passport. She can go home or wherever she wants, basically. But the way it ends is just a little, I don't know, weird. Yeah,
fair. Two really quick things I want to mention. There is maybe like 10 seconds where a taxi cab driver has blood and has been shot with a phone in his mouth, and that is a phone that Daniel gave to him. I was like, wow, that's probably like the most intense the movie gets in terms of like a thriller aspect. I wouldn't necessarily call this an erotic thriller. I think it's just like an erotic drama, honestly. And then they're crossing the border. Like one of the final scenes, they're crossing the border from Nicaragua into Costa Rica, and they're doing it on boats, and they hire these kids to like help smuggle them across the river. And then these fucking militia guys jump out of the jungle and just slaughter these kids. Just gone. Daniel catches a bullet in the arm, but that's it. And like, I'm just like, I was stunned. I was just like, what the fuck? Like, why? Where did these people come from? Why are we doing this? It was a little intense. I just wanted to mention those.
It really was. Do you have any idea why they didn't get shot? I don't understand.
No fucking clue. That's my big. Yeah. That was like my biggest. Not my biggest, but like that was a big question of the movie. Is like that I thought that was like gonna be it. I thought like, okay, you tried, and now and you died.
That's an ending. Yeah.
And that's an ending. And like it was all for naught, right? And that is totally fine. Like you tried your hardest and you failed, but I don't know. They didn't get shot. So A1X. This is going to be a little bit different because most of the people in this movie have not done enough things to warrant like having 10 things on a list for an A1 act. Obviously, we're going to call out Margaret Qualley. She was in The Nice Guys and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood are kind of like two of her most prominent films. Did you want to add anything to her at all?
No, I think that's what I would know her from for sure.
Yeah, totally. Joe Alwyn, he was in The Favorite and Souvenir Part 2, worth noting. And then Benny Safdie, gotta put my boy Benny on here. He was in Good Time, obviously. And then Licorice Pizza. He kind of plays a pivotal, what I consider a pivotal role in Licorice Pizza. So for our A1 Act, we went with movies filmed in Central America. This was, in fact, filmed in Panama, I believe.
Yeah.
Set as, Nicaragua, as like a present-day Nicaragua. So we've got a list here. Obviously, we have Stars at Noon. We have Predator. We have After Earth, Moonraker, The Suicide Squad, Quantum of Solace, The Dogs of War, Jurassic Park, and Pirates of the Caribbean. That is our short list, Ben. You got something up the sleeve? You going with the list? Because it's
people
tough.
Watching, I do. Let me pull up my sleeves
Let
here.
me see what's up there.
I kept something off, and it like barely counts, but I'm gonna do it. It is Star Wars Episode 4: A New Hope. For 13 seconds, they are filming in Guatemala. What is standing in for Yavin 4? We see the Millennium Falcon take off from the Rebel base to go attack the Death Star. And I was like, you know what? If Star Wars is on a list, and even if it's for 13 seconds, I'm gonna take it. I think we see a lot more of it, obviously, in episodes 5 and 6, but I'm gonna take that for sure.
Okay, I can't fault you for that one at all, man. It's our pod. We can bend the rules. I approve.
I approve
that.
Want.
I think that is totally acceptable.
I love
in this situation. I am going with. I'm actually going to go with the Suicide Squad, and that's just like that's a heart pick. I actually had quite a good time with the Suicide Squad.
Same.
I think James Gunn made a great movie, and I think DC is hopefully set up for success in the future now that he is kind of running the branch there. But I think the movie came out at the wrong time, but I think it was a really fun time and has an absolute bonkers, final act that all takes place in Central America. So
I love it.
That's definitely the one for me. Okay, we've got our infamous A24 ranking here, A through F.
Let's do it.
Ben, you said you wish F- existed for The Witch. You did compare this to The Witch. I am very excited to see where you're at because when this movie ended, I had a sense of where I was going to fall, and I'm curious. I'll talk through my ideas here in a second, but I'm curious where you're going to be.
I think, The Witch, part of that ranking was from my expectations going into it. So I think this one's helped by me having no expectations going into it. Margaret Qualley, I think, does a really nice job. I, was sentimental about the setting and stuff. While I haven't been to Nicaragua, like it very much reminded me of Brazil and all that kind of stuff. Like it felt very at home there. So I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool. But everything else about it was just like not
for you.
Good, not great. I don't know. I know people work hard on these. I'm not trying to like shit on anyone doing it, but as far as like just a movie, I'm like, I don't know, I wasn't super into it. So I think I'm gonna go with like a D plus 24. Okay. I think that's what I'm gonna go here.
D plus.
What are you gonna give it?
Okay, that's bold, and I respect that. I respect Claire Denis and her craft, and even though her movies generally like aren't for me, they're like not my speed. Like I would not be like, hey, it's Friday night and like, all these movies are available on a streaming platform now. And like, oh, I can watch, Weird, the Al Yankovic story with Daniel Radcliffe or Stars at Noon. I think I'm going to go with Stars at Noon. Like that's just not, I wouldn't pick that.
Yeah.
But I respect her. And I know that she makes really nuanced and intricate projects that definitely have that very special look and vibe and feel of them. I do think Margaret Qualley is quite good in this movie. A shout out to my boy Benny for rolling up in a great looking shirt.
Love it.
Got to put that one. And I like the soundtrack. But everything that we talked about, everything that we mentioned, I think the more that I think about it, the more that I actually like it. But then I have to remember the first half of the movie. I think I'm going to go with a C plus 24.
Okay.
I was leaning towards like a B minus, but that's strictly based on like the back half of the movie. The first half is very, very like Day in the Life, very slow, very Stray Cat-ish. So, I'm going with the C plus. You're going with the D minus, you said?
D plus.
D plus. Okay. All right. So we got a letter grade difference here. Okay.
Yeah. Not too bad. Yeah. No, I think everything you said is totally legit. Again, like, I didn't hate the movie by any means. I just like it just left me wanting, basically. It feels like another movie where it's like, oh, I feel like there's something here
Mhm.
that could have been super awesome. Like, give me more of the cab driver who got shot because he took the phone that Daniel told him was dangerous. He's like, no, you don't want this, man. He's like, nah, it's fine. I won't get hurt here. And the next thing we see, he's shot. So like, give me more of that thriller aspect of it. Let's cut down on like 5 of the sex scenes and just like give
Bring
me a
it
little
down.
bit more thriller. Give me a little more tension because I just didn't have it here. But you know, we'll be here for the next A24 Claire Denis film.
Absolutely.
So you
Always.
know, we'll cover it for sure. If you guys saw Stars at Noon, like we want to hear what you thought about it. Like Ethan said, it's on Hulu in the US. So check it out. Let us know what you think. We're on Twitter and Instagram at 24 minutes of A24. Also relatively new here, we are on YouTube. So don't forget to subscribe to our channel. I think we are also at 24 minutes of A24 on there as well. So just look us up and you can see our beautiful faces as we break down these movies and sometimes break down talking about these movies like I did during The Witch. So yeah. Subscribe. Let us know what you thought. Hit us up. I am Ben Lawhorn.
And I am Ethan Simi. Spring break forever, bitches.